Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Thank you all for coming and joining me on this fine journey. Um, we're starting a new game today, as I mentioned, called the Chrono Jotter, a murder mystery, mystery and suspense visual novel that follows the steps of Ran Ibuki, a high school student, as she investigates against the clock to discover who's killing her new classmates, avenge the murder of her girlfriend. Are you ready for this savage feast of life and death? So, I'm looking forward to this. It's got positive reviews. Seems to be a very interesting little thing. And was recommended to me, I believe, by a friend of mine whose tastes I very much trust. So, I think let's head on over to the game cam and see if I can figure out how to get this. We're coming up. Do we have video? Do we have this place was an enclosed space without sound and without light? It's gotten back to being bad, but it used to be much, much worse. It looks like we have liftoff. Perfect. Thank you for bearing with me during this moment. Jesus, I don't know why it's doing that. I'll try to hammer something out before tomorrow, but we'll see. Either way, we have a fix for it now, and it's fine. I was given a warning before this game started that it contains sensitive themes, violence, and potentially other sort of heavy things like that. And I just wanted to make that obvious going in, so I've left a little content warning at the top of the screen. If that's not your bag, that's fine. I always encourage people to, check Does the Dog Die or something for any media that they feel like they might not want to engage with. So if that's the case, catch me on the next one, and thank you all for supporting anyway. But for those of you who are interested in this kind of thing, I think we're ready to begin now. So I'm going to start going forward. After a quick drink of delicious water. This place was an enclosed space, without sound and without light. Ran Ibuki laid there, curled up on the floor. Her chest rose and fell gently in time with her breathing. She seemed to be asleep. I'll let her wake on her own. I didn't want to burden Ran's mind any further, so I decided to let her wake on her own. After a moment passed, the ice-cold floor began to steal away Ran's body heat. She shivered. Then Ran opened her eyes and rose from the floor. Spurred by the cold, she hugged her shoulders tightly and looked all around, but couldn't see a thing. She tried to remember just what happened the last time she'd been awake, but found only a strange mist over those memories. And within that mist, a single silhouette stood out. A girl in a school uniform, an open notebook in her hands. Ron stared at that silhouette, now acutely aware of the dire situation she was in. It had been too long since she'd last eaten a page from the notebook. Her heartbeat, the pain from her solar plexus, and her perpetually sweat-stained face all reminded her that her symptoms were about to act up again. Ron tried her best to ignore her increasingly frenetic heartbeat and, with a practiced hand, pulled out a notebook from a hidden pocket on the inside of her jacket. She gently caressed the rough leather cover of the notebook, and her wildly beating heart settled down a little, like a clownfish returning to its anemone. She wanted to open the notebook, but given how dark it was, she decided not for the moment. I need to find some light. She held the notebook under her left armpit, and she raised her hand, trying to get an idea of the room's size through touch. But it turned out she hardly needed to raise her arm at all to touch the ceiling of this space. Ron was left with no option but to press her right hand to the ceiling and slowly shuffle forward. Like a clownfish returning to its sea anemone, you don't know that common turn of phrase, Scoop? She confirmed that this enclosed space was extremely narrow, as if it was a coffin that had been custom fit to her size. Ron decided to give up on escaping for now. She sat down on the ground and pulled her cell phone out from an inner pocket on her jacket. She turned on the phone's flashlight and checked what she was wearing. A winter-styled school uniform, it turned out. She tapped the screen a few times, trying to figure out her location, but the no signal indicator on the upper left corner left her stumped. Ron wiped her sweat, illuminated the notebook, and flipped to the page where her personal details were recorded. Ronnie Buki, late Heisei era. Investigation, 3. Alacrity, 3. Charisma, 3. Temporary points, nothing. Currently suffering from damaged memory, but clearly understands that her goal is to find her girlfriend, An Sakura. Suffers from schizophrenia and hallucinates vividly under severe pressure. Long-term use of olanzapine and therapy conducted by An Sakura have helped with her recovery. Received systematic training in logical analysis and deductive reasoning, but memory loss may lead to impaired abilities. Did she give herself stats? Are the stats diegetic? I need to look up at some point what the Heisei era is. Not familiar with Japanese eras. She licked her lips, staring at the clearly questionable listings there, and decided her best to performing a recollection to try to warm up her brain, if nothing else. Yeah, you absolutely should not get therapy from your partner. That's not a good play, but I've recorded the term. Recall. All right, let's begin recollection. Should choose carefully. When the notebook has new information, a notification will appear here. Right. Click on the notebook and flip to the corresponding page to check the new information. I'm an investigative journalist, but when I reached the scene of the crime to conduct interviews, I discovered that the victim was my love. What should I do? Charge through the police cordon and kiss the corpse. No, I don't think I will. I will try to steal the police's investigation reports, however. I've illustrated a stunningly accurate portrait for a client, but they refused to pay me from my work as we contracted. What should I do? Find out why they refused to pay me and resolve the conflict. Steal treasure greater than the value of the compensation owed me from their home, or convince their nemesis to join with me to gain revenge upon them. No, I'd like to find out why they refused to pay me. I think it was a stunningly accurate portrait. I stand before a 2-floor apartment. I knocked on the door to room 102, but nobody answered me. I'm wondering if a friend of mine who might have gone missing is at home or not. What should I do? Find a spare key hidden near the door. Pick the lock and break in. Lie about being resident's little sister to get the key from the landlord. Social engineering is always the way to go when breaking and entering. I returned to the school building during the night because I left my homework in the desk in class. But just as I was about to unlock the door, I saw a stranger in the classroom. What should I do? Keep my distance? Run immediately? Or tell her a wonderful joke? I'll keep my distance. Can you take this fucking seriously, Ron? After I got shit-faced with my friends last night, I woke up with a hangover the next day. Found that there was a corpse in the middle of our snoring pile. What should I do? Notice that the corpse is still wearing shoes. Take them off for her and place them at the entrance where they belong. Twist and turn a little bit so that you're not touching the corpse and go back to sleep. Or take a selfie of everyone on the ground. These are getting more and more unhinged. Selfie! My love is about to commit suicide by running from the edge of the roof. What should I do? Notice that the cops are approaching and try to delay her through a conversation, but to no avail. Run over and grab her, but to no avail. Tell her that you want to be together with her as you head into the future, but to no avail. Ooh. Oh, geez. They did a bad job at, kerning here. Anyway, our stats have changed. Investigation 5, Alacrity 4, and Charisma 6. But the journal seems to be... this is a translated game. I've heard that the translation sometimes has issues. And I'm thinking that the, translation doesn't work with the same font. About properties. Investigation represents the ability to discern contradictions. This includes contradictions in testimonials, contradictions in space-time, and contradictions between knowledge and behavior, and contradictions between reality and physical law. Raising this ability allows Ron to discern tiny contradictions, accurately point them out, and pick up on minor clues to reconstruct the truth. Yeah, it's definitely not English as a first language visual novel, but that's fine. I'm okay with a slightly awkward translation here and there. I don't mind as long as the content's interesting. Charm represents the ability to discern emotions. This includes empathizing with the emotions of others, manipulating the feelings of others, attracting the love of others, and understanding the feeling of others. Yeah, and that's what empathizing is. It does create some little funny bits, though, here and there, as some things get lost in translation, I think. Raising this ability allows Ron to take social interactions like a fish to water, and try to manipulate others into willingly sacrificing anything for her. Alacrity represents the ability to coordinate mind and body. This includes agility and speed, manual dexterity, sharpened reaction times, skillful lockpicking, and escaping disaster. Raising this ability allows Ron to rapidly react to unexpected situations, unmake man-made obstacles, and achieve the avoidance of obstacles or seizing of opportunities. Those are really awkwardly translated. Ron nodded. She felt like her personal information had been greatly improved now. Ooh, my blood-stained book. Ooh, the prologue. Oh, yeah. Gonna be interesting. This journal is all over the place. I love it. Unmake man-made obstacles. But she was still a bit hesitant. Did she perhaps need to rethink her recollections? Oh, so I could reset my stats if I wanted to, basically, because each of those fairly closely evolved stat, I guess. I'll conclude my recollections. I'm fine with what I got for now. Ron decided not to recollect any further. She flipped the notebook to its rear cover. On the inside of the rear cover were a few miniature ring sleeves holding 3 long, strip-shaped bookmarks. Ron pulled out one of those bookmarks and placed it in the first page of the notebook. Now that all the necessary preparations had been made, she closed the notebook and placed it back in her jacket. Oh good, I've recalled what a bookmark is. Bookmark. An item which stores Ron Ibuki's memories in the notebook, allowing the achievement of a certain truly astonishing feat, details of which have been lost due to Ron Ibuki's memory loss. However, Ron has already expanded the original bookmarks. At the moment, only imitation bookmarks are available, which are only capable of creating memory backups. A recollection. Ron Ibuki can use the journal to substitute herself into a previously read book or events she's experienced personally, and engage in calibration of her visual acuity, central nervous system, and brain gray matter. However, the results of doing so often diverge from her expectations. So I could recall... branch recall, which I don't have anything for, or investigative recall, which I also don't have anything for yet. We'll figure that out as we go. Ron used her phone to illuminate the ceiling. The glowing screen immediately drove away all the darkness, and soon she found that there was a ring-shaped lock keeping the ceiling locked from the inside. She reached out and easily picked the ring lock, and was just about to push open the ceiling when she grew hesitant. Ron realized that she had no idea what was waiting for her out there. Moving recklessly might plunge her into an even more dangerous situation. And keeping the lock to a tiny basement such as this inside the basement itself seemed ridiculous at best. You didn't keep someone confined in a room by locking that room from the inside. Ron couldn't help but wonder what the mastermind which brought her to this place wanted from her. She pulled her hand back from the handle and turned off the flashlight on her cell phone, leaving only the dim light of the screen itself. Hugging her own legs, she leaned against the wall and stared at the phone's wallpaper. It was a selfie of Ron Ibuki and a different girl with the exact same school uniform. That girl was her long-lost love, An Sakura, who'd been missing for 4 years. Ron Ibuki closed her eyes, letting the memories she'd made with her love wash over her. Even though she couldn't recall many of her memories clearly anymore, she could still remember everything about the two of them as though it had just happened. Remembering the way their shared story had ultimately ended, she raised her head without hesitation. She moved herself back over the ring lock from before. Then she pushed the ceiling open slightly, so that there was just a crack from which she could carefully peer out the area around. Ice-cold air flowed into the underground chamber. Ron shivered a little and exhaled a cloud of steam. Outside she saw a lightless hallway, where wooden flooring met mottled walls. The hallway didn't seem at all that wide. It had been a long time since Ron had seen such an old wooden building as this. Ron guessed that she was, perhaps, in some sort of shack in the middle of the woods at the moment. Her heartbeat remained wild despite the progress she'd made, and the veins at the temple of her face continued to pulse forcefully. She had a skull-splitting headache and couldn't help but keep blinking. She needed to find a safe space and restabilize the rising pressure. If at all possible, she didn't want to have to eat any more paper. Ron took a deep breath, scrunched her eyes a few times, and pushed the ceiling open. Okay, Ron. That's us. That's Ron. Sprawled halfway at the edge of the exit, she craned her neck and surveyed her surroundings. A wooden hallway appeared before Ron's eyes. Toward the right of the hallway, there was clearly a row of standard-sized classrooms. Spoiled children these days don't want to eat their paper. Be grateful for the documents you have. With both hands, Ron pushed herself up from the floorboard, bringing herself back up to ground level. She looked towards both ends of the hallway. She didn't detect any traces of anyone skulking on either end. The lifeless darkness seemed to accentuate the chill of the hallway. Every breath Ron took made her lungs hurt, like they were being frozen over. Back in my day, all we had was bark, and we liked it. You'll eat bark and dirt like a man. Though the windows still remained immobile, thanks to the wooden grill holding them in place, Ron could still hear the freezing wind howling outside the room. Ron leaned against the window and stared outside blankly. She couldn't figure out how she was connected to this dilapidated school at all. She'd escaped a small mystery only to find herself in the midst of a larger one. The pressure mounting against Ron was starting to strain at her limits, and not even the ice-cold air could stem her sweating. With a trembling hand, she tried to wipe her sweat away. Even though she was missing many of her memories, Ron Ibuki was somehow certain that she was no stranger to anomalous events like this. But she couldn't remember any of the specifics. All she could remember was that each of these events had been miserable experiences for her, and that each event had also been closely linked to her quest to find An Sakura-sama. Alright. Come up with a way to get out of here so I can keep looking for Miss Sakura. Call your girlfriend Miss? Ron Ibuki decided to stop wasting time and marched forward. Look back at the underground chamber. Investigation 2, check passed. Some choices will require your attributes to reach a certain threshold before you can pick them. Once your relevant attribute reaches that threshold, the check is automatically passed. While the relevant attribute is insufficient, the number of points you need to have in that attribute will be displayed instead. If you possess any usable temporary points, the option to use temporary points will appear as well. Temporary points can be spent to raise your attributes temporarily for the duration of this choice only. After your choice has been made, the attributes you raised will return to normal. Click on People in the notebook, click on Ron Ibuki, and here you can see the number of temporary points you currently possess. Every 5 times you encounter a choice that requires an attribute check, you gain 1 temporary point. Alright. Oop. Suddenly Ron realized something. If this was just a school, why would it have such a bizarre, tiny underground chamber in the first place? Holding that question in her head, she turned to look towards the basement she'd just escaped. Only to find an ordinary floor there, without the slightest hint of a hinge or crack. Oogie! Terror rose instantly in her heart. She quickly rushed back to the basement's original location, but tripped over her own legs in her rush and slammed to the floor. Ron didn't care, though. Going along with the fall, she pressed herself to the floor and tried to pry the floor open with her fingernails, but there were no cracks to be found, no leverage to be had. The wooden floor had become a seamless solid hole, as though it were the door to a vast vault, unbudging and immovable. Ron slammed her fists onto the ground. The only response she received was a heavy thump, indicating that the ground underneath was definitely solid rather than hollow. The basement is gone. How? Unrelenting, Ron continued in vain to find a hidden seam in the wooden boards. All of her attempts were met with defeat. Ron stared with wide eyes. In the face of this impossibly ordinary floorboard, the last frayed strand of sanity that she maintained began to break down. She began to claw at her head repeatedly, trying to alleviate the stress she was under. The more mysteries and unresolved situations she had to face at once, the greater that stress would grow, she knew. The disappearance of her beloved had been enough for her condition, and now incomprehensible situations were showing up one after the other. At last, the disappearance of the basement had become the straw that broke the camel's back, and Ron's condition swallowed up her thoughts like an avalanche of snow. Hold, please. My mouse was dying. Swap the battery on it. Blinking angrily at me and being very distracting. Done. Miss Sakura, help me. My mouth began to twitch, trying to stop the foreign masses from spilling forth from within, but I had to open my mouth to drive them away. I had to drive them away. Sakura, save me. Pain in my head, the torment of my stomach spasming as I dry heaved, brought me to my knees. My cell phone fell from its pocket and struck the ground, and its screen lit up. Sakura. I twisted so that I faced the floor, clawing at my hair and bringing my legs as far in as I could. It was those memories, that blame, that loneliness which tore at me. They birthed phantasms, opened their mouths and spoke, forced me to depart from the paths of well-trodden common sense, and drowned my reason into the black magma beside me. Stress, fear, and the unknown energized them, empowering them, made them grow ever more rampant, until they were on the verge of taking away my everything. But, Miss Sakura, with my back bent and fists clenched, the notebook fell out of my jacket and splayed open on the floor, revealing a blank page. And in the periphery of my vision I glimpsed it. That pale yellow page, like the softest of bed sheets, or the finest of meat delicacies. But more than either of those, to me it was most like the tender smoothness of Miss Sakura's skin. Without realizing it, my fingers had already reached the page's edge, slowly but steadily, as though a magnetic force was pulling them closer and closer. The moment they touched the page, a familiar sense of safety and an overwhelming impulse of impending redemption washed over me. My fingers tore a small piece from the page, crumpled it into a small ball, threw it into my mouth, and without even bothering to chew, I swallowed it directly into my throat. Chewing paper doesn't really do much anyway, so honestly, this is probably the best way to consume your journal. After a long silence, Ron Ibuki finally stood back up, leaning on the wall for support. I should be able to hold on a little while longer. Let's go. So, where to next? Ooh. In investigation mode, click on the arrows to continue forward and leave the current region. Regions can contain multiple clickable areas. Move the mouse to search for areas that can be investigated. Areas which have been fully investigated will be marked as investigated. Clicking on them again will allow you to reread their contents. Love a game that tells me when I'm actually done with what I'm doing. Damaged stairs, classroom, keep going. Ron took a few steps forward and discovered a ruined stairwell. It looked as though something massive had crushed it and ground it up. Wood chips were scattered all over. She looked up, trying to see if there was something that had smashed the stairs lurking on the ceiling just above her. She didn't find anything, though. Ron approached the stairs slowly and bent down to inspect it in detail. The edges of the broken stairs were jagged and uneven. Clearly, only damage from an external force could leave marks such as this. Ron guessed that the purpose of the damage was to prevent people from reaching the second floor. He was curious why, though, so she leaned on the edge of the stairs and held onto the guardrail. Tiptoeing as closely to the damaged part as she could without falling, she peered up toward the second floor. The broken stairwell led to a small platform whose left side connected to another set of stairs going up the opposite direction, leading to the second floor. Ron craned her head to see what exactly was on the second floor, but the lighting was too dim and she couldn't make anything out. Shuffling her feet upward, she found that it might be possible to reach the second floor by clinging onto the handrail. And the school building looked quite large. There were surely many other places where the second floor could be reached, so if the goal had been to seal off the second floor completely, just destroying this one stairwell was far from sufficient. I don't think we have Alacrity 5, do we? Alacrity was the one that we had 4. Oh, but I guess I have temporary points that I could burn and do it. What happens if we try it and fail, though? Oh, it just pings and says nothing. Okay, that's fine. We'll come back to this, then. Ron couldn't figure out the meaning behind the destroyed stairwell, but she didn't want to be foolhardy and advance into an area where danger might lurk, so she could only go back down. She sighed and clawed at her hair a bit as her stress built up again. She couldn't help but start to suspect that there was something else beside her in the schoolhouse. That something had destroyed the stairwell and put her in this place, and even now it was watching her from the shadows. But Ron soon discarded these stray thoughts, which only served to feed the dread within her heart. She was fully aware that such things were just the instinctive reactions that humans had within the darkness. Just like how after waking up from a nightmare, one might imagine that the terrible entities from their dreams had descended into the darkness which surrounded them too. Merely the lingering ripples of a pebble cast by fear into the lake of reason. These analogies are wild. Ron looked towards the classroom to her side. The moon was at the perfect angle to illuminate the room with a soft azure light, allowing Ron to notice that the storage drawers in the desks had textbooks in them. This raised Ron's interest. Observing the classroom from behind a window, she wondered if there was any eclipse worms in the room. Any what? I've recorded the term eclipse silkworm. Yeah, I want to read about that real quick. What the hell are you talking about? Eclipse silkworm. Creatures which devour light. All light which shines upon these creatures is consumed, preventing direct observation. Infrared observation reveals arthropod-like animals similar to silkworms in morphology. After reaching maturity, they form cocoons which continually leak black liquid. In actuality, this black fluid is a substance which also consumes light. Ranibuki was once enveloped by a cocoon for 7 days. During this period of time, the eclipse silkworm used its mandibles to continually feed her an unknown nutrient. Feed her an unknown nutrient to her. The exact nature of which has been lost due to Ranibuki's memory loss. After 7 days, the cocoon spontaneously disappeared. Immediately afterward, The area around Ron suffered a total eclipse of the sun lasting 24 hours. As for Ron herself, aside from losing her sight for 7 days, no other irregularities were found in her physical condition. Am I a worm? If I was a worm, I think that would be in the journal, right? What's my worm stat? Ron, what the fuck is going on? She seems very not okay. Ever since the time that she'd been cocooned by the eclipse worms, Ron had taken a particular care to avoid those things wherever she could. She had no desire to repeat the week she'd spent as their captive. Once Ron carefully confirmed that there were no mysterious writhing shapes in the darkness, she decided to investigate the classroom. What she most wanted to know right now was whether she was alone in this place or not. Ron approached the door to the classroom, reached out, and easily pulled it open. It's not locked. Ron entered the classroom and found herself enveloped in the fragrance of the room's wooden timbers. She inhaled deeply, enjoying the smell before she cast her gaze around and began to investigate. Honestly, the weirdly, belabored and odd analogies are adding a strange etherealness to the quality of this game that I find very interesting. It kind of helps the effect of it, in a way. Ron approached the nearest desk and bent down to see that there were several textbooks in Chinese stacked in the desk's drawer. Chinese? With how Japanese this place looked, I'd figured. Ran took out one of the literature textbooks with some interest. Perhaps the awkwardness is intentional. It's possible. I would be a little bit surprised just based on what little I read about this. I try to keep myself pretty in the dark, given mysteries are much better when you don't know what's going on, I think. Or at least they're much more effective. I shouldn't say better, I suppose. Knowing a mystery changes it. It doesn't make it better or worse. But I want to experience it blind first time in anyway. Ron took out one of the reboot. Ron took out one of the literature textbooks with some interest. After flipping through a few pages, though, the context of the book left her with a slight sense of incongruity. Looks like a second-year high school textbook. It's nice to see some textbooks in my native language, but why are these textbooks primarily focused on the works of Japanese authors? Trying to figure out what the box is under the blackboard with the 2 dots on it. Looks like the Bad Robot logo. It does look like the Bad Robot logo. I'm guessing it's probably just for chalk storage or something. Yeah, or an eraser, maybe. I know that the blackboard is something else that we can investigate, though, so maybe we'll find out. Maybe that's where the silkworms are. Who knows? But beside the text being changed from Japanese to Chinese, the contents themselves were quite different as well. Strange. It's not right. Really, Ron? Ron flipped through these books, noticing that many of the books had been annotated by the students themselves, and in Chinese as well. Why would they deliberately choose to use translated texts like this? What are the students here even? Ron flipped back to the first page, wanting to know the name of the owner of the textbook, but she found that the space on the first page where the owner was supposed to have written down their name had been left blank. Worms off to you. No, that's nothing. I don't think that's anything. She put the book back in the drawer and circled the classroom a few times, confirming that there were only textbooks in 7 of the desk drawers. They took notes, but they didn't write their names down. This implies that... Nope, I've got no idea what it implies, actually. At least I know that there's probably 7 students in this classroom. Okay. Let's see what else there is to investigate. Ron approached the blank blackboard and poked the chalk through with a finger. Her finger was immediately covered in a thick layer of chalk dust. Yeah, I guess that's chalk storage, so you put your finger in and poke chalk out of it. Feels like there's a better way to do that, but maybe it's real old. So someone's wiped the blackboard here recently, then. Find the class schedule, investigation 4, pass. The fine sand-like texture of the chalk dust conjured an auditory synesthesia. She turned her head to the window and listened to the sound of the waves. She and Ansakura had lived by the sea for too long. Ron rubbed her fingers, letting the chalk dust fall back to the blackboard tray and cutting off the sound of the waves. Then she noticed a class schedule taped to the blackboard and bent down to investigate it in detail. Language, mathematics, physics, chemistry. Only 4 subjects. Yeah, I don't know why that was so loud. Like, my music and sound effects are already pretty low. I'm gonna turn sound effects a little bit further down. But, yeah, that was incredibly loud. In my headphones, too, I'm just like, oh, I guess the school is on the ocean. They only have classes in the morning. The afternoon time slots just say free time. The course looks easy, but what does free time mean exactly? Club activities? Whatever. No point in thinking about it right now. Let's keep investigating. Ron took a step closer to the window. Beyond it was nothing but darkness. She could only barely see the waving silhouette of a tree under the moonlight. It's too dark. Can't see outside clearly. Let's check somewhere else first. Okay. We're done in the classroom. I haven't seen this type of classroom in a while. Oh, I didn't realize I could poke Ron to see what she's thinking. This hallway's so dark that it's all a bit frightening. I guess let's try to climb up the stairs now. I'll burn one of my temporary points. Can I skip red things? Come on. Alacrity has been temporarily boosted. Your alacrity is now 5, and your remaining temporary points are 5. Ranabuki licked her lips as though she were savoring the sweetness of curiosity. She put her hands on the guard rail, turned her body to the side, and shuffled horizontally up the stairs. By the time she had almost arrived at the second floor, no stairs remained that could support Ron, but she pushed off with one leg and nimbly jumped to the platform at the end of the stairs, successfully reached the second floor of the school building. Sorry, Pancakes, I didn't intend to spook anyone. It jump-scared me, too. The layout of the second floor looked more or less identical to that of the first floor. It didn't seem like there was anything hidden here that warranted the destruction of the stairwell. Ron swept the dust off herself and contemplated her next move. Notice a certain difference. After Ron dusted herself off, she suddenly noticed just how dusty the second floor was, and how, compared to the first floor, the walls and floorboards here seemed much older. In some places, the wood had even begun to decay. Maybe the people here really only used the first floor and never bothered to maintain the second floor. Ron coughed as she waved away the dust with her hand and turned back to the first floor. Ron couldn't figure out the meaning behind the destroyed stairwell, but didn't want to be foolhardy and advance into an area where danger might. He could only go back down. I'm trying to find out if there's a fast forward button. Like, I see this, but when I click it, it doesn't do anything. Okay. Well, we'll figure that out at some point. Leaning against the window on the left side of the hallway, Ran looked outwards to assess the structure of the schoolhouse. You could see that the hallway terminated at a large gate ahead. The gate faced her directly, in fact. She considered the shape of the schoolhouse and decided that so long as the architect... If it is a toggle, you'd think that there would be some sort of signifier that it's active and it would do something. But I don't know. I'll look into hotkeys after this. Also, I probably shouldn't interrupt myself mid-sentence. She considered the shape of the schoolhouse and decided that so long as the architect had any common sense whatsoever, this hallway would definitely turn left eventually so that it could connect to the front gate. Only when I moused over it. Ron sniffed a bit, letting the cold air of the hallway pour into her lungs once again. This time it didn't hurt. She merely shivered a little instead, her nerves sharpened by the chill. She now felt like she was in excellent condition. Her heartbeat had stabilized and her mind was agile. I appreciate you looking out, Scoop, but it's just, I can't figure it out for whatever reason. I've tried poking it and doing something like that. It just seems like a sort of clunky interface. She now felt like she was in excellent condition. Her heartbeat had stabilized and her mind was agile. Eating a page always brought Ran into an elevated state like this, like a post-workout athlete who had just drunk a refreshingly cold beverage. Now that both body and mind were in top condition again, it was time to deal with the situation at hand. She looked all around and noticed that the design of the schoolhouse seemed rather antiquated. Diagonal wood struts supported the ceiling, and the windows were fixed in place by wooden latch bars which prevented them from being opened. The walls were yellowed with age and coated with cracks. Clearly this schoolhouse had been built a long time ago. As Ron walked, she gently ran her hand along the wall on the side of the classroom, feeling the texture of the surface. The rough sensation from her fingertips reminded her of the first time that she'd touched the notebook. She'd given great attention to the slightly grainy texture of the page. For some reason, doing so had given her heartbeat's pace a healthy increase, as though she'd been caressing her lover's supple waist. Ron took her head and redirected her attention to the present. Not far down, she saw that the hallway took a left turn. Scattered moonlight shone down from the left there. It felt unrealistic to her for a moment, like it was artificially glowing indicator right out of a video game placed to mark the objective. But she picked up the pace and ran towards the bend in the hallway anyways. When Ron finally arrived at the gate to the school building, she found 5 racks of shoeboxes, typical for a school, most of them thoroughly empty. Remembering that the textbooks she'd looked through in the classroom hadn't had any names written on them, Ron decided to investigate the shoe cabinets here as well. She was confident that the shoe cabinets would have nameplates. The students would have a hard time finding their own shoes otherwise. Would they? It'd give her the opportunity to determine just how many students this school had. Ron wove between the shoe cabinets and found that only the third rows of one of the cabinets held any shoes. Exactly 7 pairs. Though the plaques on the shoe cabinets didn't have any real names on them, just numbers, Arabic numerals from 1 to 7. Ron wondered if she should stay here longer to investigate these shoes, or if she should just leave the main gate as soon as she could. She quickly came to a conclusion. Her top priority was getting out of here, not solving the mystery of the school or whatever. That may be your priority, Ran, but mine is solving the mystery of the school. 1 pair for each day she spent in the cocoon. Ron approached the main entrance and pressed down on the door handle. Door opened compliantly. No lock existed to prevent Ron from advancing. The main entrance is not locked either. Ran has updated her notes. How so? Let's take a look. Leave here as soon as possible to find Miss Sakura. Pitch black. Kidnapped? I'm wearing a school uniform. Not hungry either. Winter uniform. It's really cold. The schools seem huge. Is there a village on these lands? And the stars and moon are okay. Ron pushed the front gate open. The cold wind blowing from outside the room made it hard for her to open her eyes. It was already November, and Ron, who was only wearing a winter uniform, was so cold she started hugging herself to stay warm. She advanced slowly, hugging her own shoulders. The sound of the wind mixed with the rustling of the leaves seemed to accentuate the courtyard's darkness. Even though she'd activated the flashlight mode on her phone, she still couldn't see the path clearly. Looking around, Ron was barely able to make out the silhouettes of the buildings. Accompanied by the howling wind and swaying groves, she felt like the buildings themselves were beginning to writhe as well. Ron pressed on. The sound of the wind grew louder and louder until she could no longer hear her own footsteps. The cold, the darkness, the slowly accumulating stress had all made her quite frustrated. But she had made it outside, and now all she needed to do was escape. And now all she needed to do to escape was find the school gates. I've recorded a new recall point. At least I've gotten outside. Where should I go from here? Figure out how this works. Investigative. Oh, okay, so I can jump to certain points. I guess maybe these will diverge eventually once I have more information. It is called Chrono Jotter, after all, so I'm guessing I'm going to be moving around temporally a little bit. All right. The wind is so strong that I can barely keep my eyes open. Well, let's look at the schoolhouse real quick first. I just came from there, so let's not go back there just yet. Let's wait until I really can't find anywhere else to go before returning to the school building. That's fair. Let's look at the gymnasium, then. Gymnasium! Ron approached the massive arc-shaped silhouette in the darkness, guessing that it was probably the gymnasium. If she got lucky, perhaps she'd be able to find the room where they stored the gym equipment and spend the night on a soft workout mat. Better than nothing. Thinking of this, Ron shielded her eyes from the howling cold wind with a hand and jogged over to the main entrance of the gymnasium. The doors weren't locked either. Ron pressed her hand to the doors and forcefully pushed them open. The resultant creaks echoed in the empty gymnasium. Ron felt like the sounds were cutting into her very eardrums. Ron walked into the gym. It was terribly dark. She groped her way around the walls but couldn't find a light switch. As Ron raised her head and looked toward the distant, unreachable ceiling, a wordless fear grew in her heart. That, plus the foreboding atmosphere of the unoccupied gymnasium, and that chill that seemed to seep into her body here left Ron shivering. She decided that, in comparison, even the cold wind outside possessed more vitality. So she retraced her steps, closed the gym door, and returned to the courtyard, rubbing her shoulders and looking for somewhere better to go. Alright, let's approach the gate then. Find out it's locked. Or something. Ron saw ahead of her an open clearing with good visibility, unobstructed by any buildings. She stared at it and realized she could see a short wall. Clearly, the school gates were over there. The frustration in Ron's heart cleared instantly. Picking up her pace, she ran towards the gates. But upon reaching the gates, Ron was forced to stop. Beneath her feet, an old dirt road stretched out horizontally, while ahead laid an endless expanse of shrubbery, trees, and muddy wetlands. Ron didn't dare venture into a dark swamp like that. By the light of her phone, she saw that the road under her feet led into silent darkness in both directions. She pulled at her hair for a few moments before turning back to the school. Let's wait for morning before I head out. Again, fair. Campus depths. Campus this large has to have a dormitory, right? Let's try to get in and find an empty room and lay low for them. Worst comes to worst, I could just head back to the school building, rip down some curtains to use as blankets. Ron looked all around, remembering that she'd seen a lone house somewhere in the darkness not long ago. Usually, an isolated building far away from the main campus like this would either be a lab building or a dormitory. Ron was hoping it was the latter. With high expectations, she advanced towards it. Suddenly, though, a flickering light appeared from a completely different direction. Ron halted her steps and stared at the slowly brightening light. The light's coming from a house, isn't it? Turn their lights on. Is it a student? The light's appearance was so timely that Ron Ibuki couldn't help but wonder whether or not the light was actually a shining lure of some kind of anglerfish. But Ron wanted to know if there was anybody else here. Even if it risked a conflict, she felt an encounter with another person would at least help shine some light on her situation. As long as she was sufficiently careful, she'd be fine. After all, this wasn't even close to the most dangerous situation she'd ever been in. And now was no time for cowardice. Ron touched her notebook again, giving herself a quiet word of encouragement, then ran towards the light. It's a lot of fish metaphors, specifically. Fish and water and waves. It's interesting. This guest house is very Umineko. The place that Ron had arrived at, in her pursuit of the light, had indeed met her expectations. It definitely looked like the kind of place where accommodation could be found. Most incredibly of all, it was a Western-style building. It was an unwise decision to simply barge into the building without any intel. But the frigid winds didn't leave Ron hesitant for too long. She quietly pushed open the door and headed directly into the dormitory without taking off her shoes. Ron could feel her cheeks and ears frantically twitching in nervousness. Her eyes darted unnaturally all over for fear of missing the slightest move. Carefully, she shuffled her feet until she came to a fork in the hallway. Toward the left were stairs that led to a second floor, and on the right was... As soon as Ron looked to the right, she froze immediately, then quickly ducked behind the corner wall. She'd heard the sound of footsteps and pouring water from the right side. Poking her head out slightly, she looked towards it. On the right was an open kitchen. Inside, a female student stood, facing away from Ron. She was quite tall. She held a bottle of fruit tea in her hands, which she was pouring into a cup. Ron observed the female students carefully. Looks like she's not armed. Hard to tell how fit she is due to the uniform, but most likely just an ordinary civilian. Hair seems a bit wet. Probably just finished showering. She seems to be close to my age. Could consider initiating contact. But from her perspective, what would she make of me? A thief? A home invader? Or escaped convict? Ron turned around and leaned against the wall. Whether or not the students were the ones who locked me in the basement. Either way, definitely not supposed to be here right now. Even if I'm just a victim, a student's natural reaction to a stranger showing up in their dormitory would be alarm and hostility. She was pouring the water from the second floor into the teacup. That's why it was so goddamn loud, apparently. Not to mention the very possibility that it was the students who locked me up in the first place. I should reconsider and find a controlled approach that maximizes my chances of... Oi! The female student suddenly appeared in the intersection. Startling ran into letting out a scared gasp as their eyes met. As Ran had predicted, she didn't look pleased at all. Looking at her ear piercings, fangs that occasionally peeked out from her mouth as she spoke, for some reason Ron found herself reminded of the feral cats that lived under her apartment. She was taller than Ran, though, and she cast a shadow on Ran's face just by standing over her. It made Ran feel diminished and stressed. A few stray memories of Ron's miserable experiences at school flashed through her mind, unbidden. She quickly blinked them away and focused on the reality before her. Who are you? What are you doing here? Looks like she doesn't know about my situation. Let's see where conversation gets me. Let's notice her serpentine bracelet. Bracelet's an Ouroboros, isn't it? What's it mean? I'm asking you who you are. Stop wasting my time. So fierce. My name is Ron Ibuki. First name Ron, last name Ibuki. But we're all speaking Chinese here, so you can call me Lin Jinlan. I guess they're all speaking Chinese here. The hell are you talking about? Female student scrunched up her brow and stared at Ron. How could I possibly be speaking Chinese? You're speaking Japanese right now, aren't you? There was no question that the sounds that Ron perceived from both her and the female student's mouths were most utterly ordinary Chinese. What's going on? I'm clearly speaking Chinese, and she's also... let's try testing this. Ooh, okay. Let's see how much of this I remember. I think that's Kore koso Nihongo de wa ii deshoka? Ii deshoka? This is something like that. Either way, I'm impressed at myself for remembering the kanji for Japanese specifically. Kore koso Nihongo de wa nai deshoka? As soon as Ron spoke those words, she clasped her hands to her mouth. She'd spoken those words with Japanese grammar and pronunciation, and she was certain that she'd felt her mouth form the correct shapes for such. But what she heard was completely unremarkable Chinese coming out of her mouth. It was like there was a parasite living in her mouth, controlling her mouth for her. The orders given by her brain and the movements of her muscles were in alignment, and yet the results had turned out completely different from her expectations. She'd never experienced such an incongruity before, and it left her terrified. Wait a second. Now I've seen written text has only been in Chinese or Arabic numerals, and that book, which was obviously a Japanese textbook, but translated into Chinese for some bizarre reason. Ron held a hand to her forehead, her expression anxious. Me too, girl. This is weird. Tower of Babel shit. Hey, can I call you Ibuki? Right? Why'd you get quiet all of a sudden? Nothing. Just, yeah. Call me Ibuki. You? The girl seemed rather confused about Ron's rapid shifts in demeanor, but soon loosened her brows and spoke. My name's Sayuruno. I'm a student here. Sayuruno. Ron's a good illustrator. After meeting a new character, relevant information about that character will be recorded in the notebook. Click Notebook. Click on People. Click on Sayuruno. Click on Sketch. Ron will record her opinions of this on the person in this area. Sai had apparently fully relaxed her guard and returned to the rhythm of her ordinary life, which surprised Ron quite a bit. Her reaction to the sudden appearance of a stranger in her dormitory had been quite underwhelming. Suddenly, Ron started to worry about whether Sai had already grown used to this sort of thing. Had there been many past cases where someone had intruded into the school on accident and run into Sai at the dorms and was then never seen again? Well, if that was the trope at hand, then the next plot beat would probably involve Ron running into a bunch of other people in the same situation, until finally when dawn broke, only Ron and the final girl were able to escape. She couldn't help but laugh at the third-rate horror movie plot that had appeared in her mind. Foreshadowing is a literary device in which... Well, it's pretty late. You should get to bed. I'll introduce you to everyone tomorrow morning. You can sleep in my room tonight. A room? That's a bit sudden, isn't it? Well, everyone else already has a roommate. My room's the last one left with a vacancy. That's why. Ron nodded, even though that wasn't really what Ron was asking. I see. You're fine with that, though? Ron took a quick look over the layout of the area while she talked. There was a dining table in the open kitchen, On the other side of the dining table, a set of stairs connected the first floor to the second. Under those stairs, a passageway led deeper into the dormitory. Ron took the opportunity to memorize the layout of the area. It was clearly a spacious building. If each room had multiple people in it, Sayuruno's room was the only one with an empty bed. That implied that the number of students here might be greater than 7. I'm a stranger to you, aren't I? I thought you'd be more cautious about me. And me? Should I trust a stranger like her? In response, Sai gulped down the last of her fruit tea before stepping into the kitchen and saying, you're the same age as me and you don't seem like a bad sort. She turned on the faucet and began to wash her newly emptied cup. The water made a pleasant splashing sound as it passed over the sides of the cup and flowed into the sink. Before long, Sai turned the faucet off and started wiping at her hands. Unless you're telling me you really are here to cause trouble. Of course not. I'm a decent person. The way that Ron spoke with resolve made Sai laugh. Well, there you go then. Come with me. Don't forget to take your shoes off. Head upstairs with Yuruno, or ask Yuruno for directions to the bus station, and leave immediately. Let's wait till morning, I think. Ron returned to the entrance of the building and took the opportunity to inspect every single inch of the shoe cabinet when she went to drop off her shoes. Sai, meanwhile, simply climbed halfway up the stairs and took a leaning position against the guardrail, calmly waited for Ron to finish doing her thing. Ron counted the number of shoes. There were 7 pairs of shoes. Most of them were various kinds of student-appropriate shoes, but a pair of short boots stood alone at the very bottom of the cabinet. So there really are only 7. Oi, are you still not done? Sai's yell startled Ron a little bit, and she reflexively scrunched up her shoulders as she answered Sai. Sorry, I'll be right there. Ron ultimately closed the cabinet without putting her own shoes in. Rather, she left them at the main entrance, toes pointed outward, followed Sai upstairs to the second floor. Oi, mate! You fucking what? The second floor hallway wasn't long. On the left was a balcony from which you could see the bottom floor. On the right, you could quickly walk to the end of the hall. The layout of this hallway is really odd to me. The the lack of symmetry makes this just blank wall look so odd. At the end were 4 doors, none of which were marked by nameplates. Exactly the right amount of rooms for 7 people, if Yoruno was telling the truth about having a room to herself. As far as the layout of the first and second floor went, the building felt less like a student dormitory and more like an ordinary civilian residence. Sai pulled open the outermost door and gestured for Ron to head in first. Ron nodded, entered, and immediately began inspecting everything without so much as asking permission, while Sai got to work spreading a bedsheet out on the lower bunk. The amenities in the dorm room were rather simple. Besides the rather simplistic posters on the wall, there was only standardized furniture, and little in the way of additional decoration. Fucking huge for a dorm. I'm gonna take this opportunity to look at Sayuruno and what we've recorded about her so far. Apparently her investigation is 4, her alacrity is 7, and her charisma is 5. Uniform styled after a sailor outfit with skirts. First student encountered by Ron Ibuki at the school. Speaks bluntly, but holds no hostility towards Ron. She loves swimming, and visits the swimming pool whenever she gets the chance. While submerged, she feels that she can almost hear her younger sister's voice. When did you learn all of this? Very handsome face, beautifully muscled arms. She's got a little fang. Ouroboros bracelet? Possibly a chuni? Which is, I think, like, sort of like calling someone a weeb, as I understand it. Ron wondered if this was because of the school's rules, or if it was just due to Sai's own personality. After that, she took a few more laps around the room before settling by the windows. The endless darkness outside the windows melded seamlessly into the night sky, as though a vast curtain veiled the whole dormitory. Alright, that's enough rummaging around for you. Time to get in that lower bunk and sleep. Oh, okay. Thanks. After that, Sai didn't say much. She climbed to the top bunk and used a switch near the head of the bed to turn off the lights. Seeing the situation, Ron took her phone out and used it to light the path to the bed. She took off her socks and outerwear and lay down in the bed. Its warmth warded away the cold, letting her finally relax fully. The situation had developed quite well, much better than Ron had been imagining. She quietly looked forward to being able to leave this place tomorrow with the help of the other students, set off once again on her journey to find An Sakura. Ron pulled up her blankets and tucked in. The winter blankets are so cozy. I don't know why, but talking to Yuruno was relaxing for some reason. Thanks to her, the situation has improved a lot. Really thank her again. Yuruno, Shut it. Sleep. Hey. Me too, girl. Shut the fuck up and go to bed. Ron opened her eyes, tossing and turning on the bed. The unfamiliar environment and ceaseless mysteries continued to torment her mind. Even though the pain which emanated from both her brows and her brain reminded Ron that she'd reached truly dangerous levels of fatigue, she still couldn't get to sleep. Ron rolled over and turned her phone on, hoping to find some comfort in her photos of An Sakura. I feel even worse. Ron closed her eyes, and, against her will, the memory of the time she'd spent together with An Sakura began forcibly replaying themselves before her eyes. The beautiful past that made the painful present even more unbearable. Ron clenched her brows tightly, but it did nothing to stop this venom, sweet like honey, spreading all over her. Hugging her shoulders, she trembled. Sakura, where are you? Fatigue and drowsiness finally overcame nostalgic memory, and Ron gradually fell asleep, dream-born tears flowing from her eyes. She's surely dreaming about An Sakura. Surely. You always hide here alone. What happened? Yes, Miss Sakura, I always have been alone, until you found me. Let me wipe your tears. Tell me what happened. I'm sorry, Miss Sakura, I can only cry. I can't even speak clearly. I'm scared of pain, scared of being bullied. Don't worry. From now on, I'll be here with you. I know, Miss Sakura, but I still want to be the most important person to you. I'm glad you can say that. I'm really happy. I am too, Miss Sakura. Even if the venom that cannot be avoided is spread all over my body, we will never be separated. Wait, your hands are clumsy. You hurt me. Miss Sakura's expression is different from usual. It must be something that only I can see. Now you and I have a special relationship, right? From now on we'll never be apart. Of course, Miss Sakura. Miss Sakura? Miss Sakura, where are you? Come quickly. Miss Sakura, I can't do anything without you. An, where are you? Come back soon. An, where are you? Miss Sakura! Miss Sakura, where are you? Miss Sakura, without you I can't do anything. Where are you? Come out quickly. I'm here. An, don't leave me. I want to see you. An! Oi! Time to get up. You're being called awake. Ron forcibly opened her eyes forcefully. Turning her head in a stupor, she stared at Sai Yuruno, who'd already put her uniform on. Then she looked at the overhead bedboard. Only now were her memories of the previous night starting to reawaken. Ron sat up on the bed, her back bent and her mind still slightly muddled, trying to retain the voice of her love from the dream just a little longer. But soon it all dissipated, and all that was left before Ron's eyes were a stranger's room. She looked toward her own oh, shoot. Thank you. The The cutscenes in this game really screw up my game capture. That's very strange. Thank you for letting me know, Scoop. Glad I noticed relatively quickly. You didn't miss anything. It's just been a blank line of this dorm. After all, after An had disappeared, she'd already been forced to eat 18 whole pages out of the notebook to stifle increasingly serious symptoms of her condition. Are you okay? Ron shook her head and stared with side eyes at the changes to Sai's head that she couldn't ignore. You looking at something? Nothing. I just, well, hairstyle. I was trying window capture earlier, and I was having the exact same problem as game capture, too. The only way I was able to get this to work was display capture, which is why it jump scares my desktop every time. I think this game is just a little... It's either this game or it's OBS, and either way I've jury-rigged a solution to it, so maybe I'll toy around with it later. I don't know. But either way, if I know that it's the cutscenes, I can prep for it. I'm guessing that's what happened with the beginning too, where when I was getting everything set up and ready to go, it plays an opening cutscene on the opening crawl, and I'm guessing that while it was doing that, it screwed up something with the game capture since I had OBS up. So. That's my assumption? We'll see. Who knows? Anyway, tech support. Somehow I get the impression that you're not exactly complimenting me. Whatever, just get up already. We updated the picture. Did we update it to contain her braids? Oops. Ron took a long, lazy stretch. She noticed that Sai was holding a small baggie of something. She shook it a few times, and Ron's eyes tracked it as it swung back and forth like a pendulum. Is that a weed? Just added a little note that says nice hair. Oh, good. I really hope that Ron is just an incredible gay disaster this whole time. Stop staring now. This is the bag for my swimsuit. I'm planning on getting a swim in the morning before meetup. Swimming? There's a swimming pool here? Oh shit. What, do you think I'm gonna backstroke across the courtyard? I like her. Now hurry up and come to the washstand with me. The person that's on duty for today should have already gotten up, so I'll ever keep an eye on you in my place from now on. Sure? I noticed it last night when I entered Yuruno's room as well. Despite how well furnished this place is, it doesn't have private bathrooms. I guess that means even the sinks where you brush your teeth are communal. Ron rolled out of bed, put on her socks, and picked up her jacket, and headed out of the room with Sai. Yawning, she pulled her jacket on as she walked. After she was done adjusting its collar, she got her phone out. The screen showed that it was currently 6 o'clock exactly, quite early. She followed Sai, descending to the first floor and turning into a hallway next to the stairs. Soon, Ron could hear the sounds of flowing water not too far away. Oi, Indo! You're on duty today, right? The person Sai had addressed as Indo turned, with her hands crossed before her, and made a light bow to Sai. Good morning, Yuruno-san. Yeah, perfect timing then. I'm handing it over to you. Ibuki, come over here. Okay, boss. Ron quickly followed Sai, stepping to her side, preparing to greet Indo. But the moment she saw Indo, she paused. And on the other end, the one who'd been called Indo reacted much more noticeably. She stared back and forth between Sai and Ron, apparently struck speechless, only capable of making sounds of surprise. What's with you?
Why is there a stranger? Yuruno-san, who is she?
Calm down, Indo. Deep breath. Indo nodded forcefully and then started taking deep breaths as Sai had suggested. Have to dip up for dinner. Have a good rest of the stream. Bye, Scoop. Thanks for dropping by. Really appreciate it. Have a good dinner. Indo apparently took the idea of deep breaths extremely seriously, practically flinging her head all the way back with every breath. Indo, huh? Like the character for Puppy? It does suit her. She's pretty adorable. Why is she wearing a hakama, though? Aren't hakamas usually supposed to have flowery decorations like that? Are they? Looking closely, the overall design looks a bit similar to Yuruno's sailor-style uniform.
Okay, I'm calm. Now, calm.
Sayurino smiled and gave the hair bun on the back of Indo's head a light tousling up. Great, then I'm leaving the rest to you. Why don't you show Ibuki to the classroom, eh? Oh yeah, and by the way, last night I came back from swimming. I noticed that the showers weren't getting any water. Make sure you let Asakura know about that when you get to class so that she can come fix it in the afternoon. But last night, when Yuruno's hair was wet, that was because she had just gotten back from showering at the swimming pool. Though, wouldn't that hairstyle cause trouble for her when she's swimming? I'm curious. Do you not know about, like, shower caps or swim caps?
Okay, Yuruno-san. I'll remember to pass it on.
Sai nodded before turning to Ron and speaking. Good. So, Ibuki, just stick with Indo and you'll be fine. Don't bully her or I'll beat you up. Where'd you get that idea of me from? Sai laughed and then headed to the washstand to start brushing her teeth.
Good morning. You're Ibuki-san, correct?
That's right. That's right. My name is Ron Ibuki. Indo is speaking Chinese too, but if I ask her about it, I'm sure she'll have the same reaction that Yuruno did last night. And now there's the question of, why is Indo's wearing a hakama too? Maybe she's some kind of exception to the school rules.
I'm Tama Indo. It's nice to meet you, Ibuki-san.
Tama Indo. I love the big goofy drawing she makes of them. Let's look at what you psychically know about Tama Indo already. Investigation 4, Alacrity 4, Charisma 7. Uniform styled after a lantern hakama. Impeccably polite to everyone with very controlled movements. Tries to conceal her inferiority complex and tries to take the blame for everything around herself in order to avoid becoming an annoyance. Besides Miss Sakura's childhood pictures, I have never seen such an adorable little girl. Hair buns, adorable. She's tiny and it's also adorable. Lantern hakama, wearing hand bracelets, they're woven Shintoism? Shrine maiden? After Yuruno told Indo to calm down, it was like a switch had been flipped. Her attitude did a 180. Just like when Yuruno first met me last night.
Here's some separate spare toothbrushes and cups. You can use these, Ibuki-san.
As Tama spoke, she raised herself onto her toe tips and opened the cabinet behind the washroom mirror. After a moment's hesitation, she took out a fresh toothbrush and, still sealed in its packaging, and presented it to Ron with both hands. Then she turned around again and dug up a cup, which she washed several times under the faucet. Then, with her right hand holding the handle, and her left hand supporting the base of the cup, she delivered the cup to Ron. So formal. By now, Sai had finished cleaning up. She gave Ron a pat on the shoulders and waved farewell to Tama before she departed for the dormitory's depths. The direction she was heading in was opposite of that of the main entrance. Ron rinsed her mouth as she watched Sai depart. Then she spat out the foam, cleaned the cup, and put it back on the washboard. But Tama didn't seem satisfied. She took Ibuki's cup and gave it a second washing before replacing it back in the mirror. Well, now I just feel a bit embarrassed.
Now, if you'll allow me to escort you to your classroom, Ibuki-sama. I mean, Ibuki-san.
Did she just call me? With a light smile on her face, Tama bowed slightly before placing her hands in front of herself and quickly stepping in front of Ran. Ran followed her to the entrance. Tama bent down and opened the bottommost shelf of the shoe cabinet. She took out a pair of short boots and sat down to methodically lace them on. Ran's shoes had long since molded themselves to her feet, so it didn't take her more than a few seconds for her to slip them on. She waited next to the door for Tama to finish. Tama meticulously tied her shoelaces in exactly the proper configuration, and then made a few slight turns after she stood up, as if to confirm that she'd put on the shoes properly. After that was done, she tapped the ground with her shoe tips and made a slight bow towards the interior of the dormitory before she finally spoke to Ran.
Thank you for your patience, Ibuki-san. Let's depart.
Updated the profile. Let's find out. Oop, nope, not terms. Characters. Bootsy's ultra adorable. All of her notes are just great. Ran nodded in agreement, and the two left the dormitory together, heading towards the schoolhouse that Ran had just escaped the previous night. There she is. During the day, the courtyard looked quite plain and unassuming, much different from how ominous it had seemed last night. Ran walked quite slowly, following behind Tama, observing the distant mountain ranges, coarse soil under her feet, and the old wooden buildings around her. Suddenly, a thread of nostalgia rose on her, and she found herself thinking of the time she and An visited An's grandmother in the countryside. An Sakura's grandmother had a strange disposition and kept calling Ran a little raccoon for some reason. She was exceedingly gentle and kind with her granddaughter, though. She would often wheel a little hand cart to bring them chilled watermelon, while Ran and An were fishing next to the river. Though she always wound up eating Ran's portion herself somehow. I didn't really like being called a little raccoon. And Sakura said that raccoons were adorable, so I had no choice but to let her grandmother keep calling me that. Wait, what am I even doing? When Ran had followed Tama all the way to the vicinity of the schoolhouse, she halted and called out to Tama. "Hold on, Indo." Self get caught up in the atmosphere here. I'm not here to attend school. Indo, I only stumbled into the school because I got lost. But I'd like to get out of here before one of your teachers catches me here. Could you tell me which way to the station it is to the station from the gates? After hearing Ran out, Tama shook her head and opened her mouth to speak.
Sorry, Ibuki-san. There are only us 7 students here, and no teachers.
Tama smiled as if she'd just thought of something pleasant.
Well, 8 now, including you, Ibuki-san.
Ran furrowed her brows, not understanding what Tama meant. But she decided not to scrutinize Tama's work, so she simply clawed a bit at her hair and gave up thinking about it. She'd already made up her mind last night in the school building that she didn't need to explain the mysteries of this school. As long as she could get out of here to be enough. Okay, so there's no teachers in the school then. So could you tell me where I should go if I want to leave?
Ibuki-san, I'd love to help you, but it's impossible to leave right now.
Ran narrowed her eyes. She figured it wouldn't be that easy. Still, if Ran could learn what the nature of the obstruction was, she'd be able to come up with a plan for it. Tama raised a hand and pointed toward the northwest.
If you leave the school and then turn left, there's a tunnel passage that'll bring you to the nearby village. But there was an incident at the tunnel that caused a cave-in, so we can't leave through it, and there are no other ways out of the area.
Ran's brows lifted at Tama's words. She instantly felt as though she were merely a step away from escaping this school. Well, that's how it is, huh? That's not so bad. I was worried it'd be some kind of occult or supernatural situation. The fact that the exit exists at all is good news. It's just blocked, that's all. An accident? So when exactly did the tunnel get blocked?
I don't know. We discovered the blockage a year ago.
Are you serious? A whole year? Ron stared with wide eyes, Tama's words echoing in her head. Tama nodded. She apparently saw nothing wrong with her statement and instead looked curiously at Ron.
Something wrong, Ibuki-san?
Of course there's something wrong with that. You just said now that the tunnel's the only way to get to the outside world from here. So none of you have gone home or talked to your families in a whole year? And if the road is blocked, then nobody can get in here, right? So what have you been eating? Are you telling me you had a year's worth of supplies stored in your school? Really, from the moment that the school showed up in here, in a place that's so inconvenient to visit and so isolated from other residential areas, the strangeness should have been self-evident.
I don't know. There's always been enough to eat at the school.
Ron couldn't help but let out a heavy sigh. Look, even disregarding this food thing, you're telling me that the situation is that you all have basically been locked in here for over a whole year. You don't think there's anything weird about that? Tama had broken eye contact with Ron and was looking straight down at the ground while nervously fidgeting with her fingers.
I don't...
Seeing Tama's reaction for a moment, Ron thought that she was looking into a mirror. She quickly lowered her voice in contrition. Sorry, I just got a bit worked up. But you really aren't all worried about being trapped here?
I mean, calling it being trapped... We're supposed to stay at the school anyway, until we graduate. I'm sure that the tunnel will be fixed by then, so as long as we can leave by then, we'll be fine.
Graduation, huh? But...
I'm sorry, Ibuki-san.
Tama spoke timidly, interrupting Ron's thoughts.
Can we hurry to the classroom? I'm afraid I won't have enough time to clean up.
Tama's gaze slid all over the place nervously and unnaturally, trying to look anywhere other than into Ron's eyes. Ron could practically hear the grinding sounds. It was like she and Tama were gears spinning in opposite directions, so that their teeth now clashed against each other. Is this really the time for cleaning? Ron decided to capitulate and go along with Tama for now. Sorry. Yeah, let's go then. Year. No matter how you think about it, being trapped in a school for a whole year can't be called normal. Let's go ahead and meet the other students for now and see how they feel. With any luck, I'll find someone who wants to get out of here like I do. Okay. You've never questioned this at all, Tama. After they entered the school building, Ron had wanted to ask Tama whether she had any thoughts about the broken down staircase ahead of them. But the overly natural way that Tama had been behaving up until now made Ron think that even if she asked, Tama would only give some entirely inconsequential and irrelevant response. What was interesting, though, was that after Tama took off her short boots at the shoe racks and placed them into her cubbyhole, she actually took out a pair of black wooden clogs to use as indoor shoes, and it looked like there wouldn't be any irritating clacks of wood clogs against wood flooring anytime in Tama's future. She walked in them with easy poise and utter silence, like she was taking a stroll on an early morning street free of other pedestrians. Ron guessed that maybe Tama possessed some sort of special walking techniques or something. Like how in the movies, maids at traditional hotels could run down the wooden hallways together, all in a row without making any noises that might irritate a guest. Following Tama like this in the hallway, the difference between what she saw now and what she'd seen during the night made Ron feel like this place might not be bad at all. Tama's a ghost? It really does feel like one of those things where they're all fucking dead, huh? Like, this is a weird purgatory situation. It's definitely kind of the vibe I'm getting here. In the past, she'd always arrived very early to school as well, and the school building from back then was just like the one here, empty and devoid of everything except her and the last night's air. And later on, a certain An Sakura would join Ron at her side on mornings like that. Sakura, just where are you? Yeah, it's definitely got a kind of that afterlife torment situation. Who knows? It's supposed to turn into a murder feast, so we're still in the prologue, certainly. As Ron's brain spun up a memory for her, Tama, who was still ahead, suddenly stopped to pull out a red and black flip phone from an inner pocket on the upper half of her outfit. She opened the phone and tapped at it a few times, and then her eyes began to shine as she raised a hand to cover her giggles. Tama seemed like she was trying to type something into her phone and held it with both hands, tapping clumsily on the numpad with her thumbs. What is it? Something good happened?
Oh, it's nothing. Just my roommate always sends me a text message every morning after she gets up. With fascinating content every time, too.
Tama smiled in self-evident bliss.
Asakura-san is my roommate. I believe she's been mentioned before.
Wait. Ron raised a hand, making a timeout gesture with it. You said you got a text?
Yes. That's what they're called, right? It's the thing where I can see the words that Asakura-san sends me.
Ron immediately pulled out her own phone out of her pocket. She swiped open the screen, only to find that the upper left corner continued to read, "No signal. Clear as day." No signal. Indo, can I see your phone?
Please, go right ahead.
Tama presented her flip phone to Ron with both hands. The screen on Tama's phone read the exact same, though. No signal. It left her thoroughly vexed. Ron tapped her own phone number into the antique flip phone, but she only got a mechanical-sounding female voice which informed her that she was unable to connect. Even more strangely, her phone, which definitely had a Japanese SIM card plugged into it, was emitting system error noises in Chinese. Alright, sure, okay. So the students' phones must have been modified in some way. Sorry for the holdup. Here's your phone back. Ron handed the phone back to Tama, who'd carefully returned it to its interior pocket. Ron couldn't help but feel like the phone and the hakama Tama wore made for a bizarre combination, even though the flip phone itself was quite outdated as well.
I'm sorry, I don't understand much when it comes to how phones work.
You don't need to apologize about that. How come you're always trying to apologize, Indo? We can talk about the phone thing later. Let's get going for now.
Okay. I often make trouble for others because I don't know how to use my phone. So Ibuki-san's reaction made me worried I'd done something wrong again.
The way she thinks is as adorable as the way she looks. She could touch her hair buns. It's fine. It's my problem, not yours. Tama nodded. The two of them continued advancing down the hallway and quickly reached the classroom. Tama jogged all the way to the storage cabinet at the back of the classroom and opened it. She got out a broom and a dustpan and began to tidy up, starting from the rearmost row of desks. Let me help it as well. Is there anything I can do?
Sure, Ibuki-san, thank you. Could you wipe off the window and blackboard with a rag, please? A dry rag will be fine.
Okay. Ron approached the storage cabinet, taking the opportunity to investigate if there was anything noteworthy in the cabinet. But she didn't find anything worth mentioning. Ron could only take up a white rag and start wiping off the blackboard at a measured pace. After she finished cleaning off the blackboard, Ron raised her head. Watching Tama's petite form scramble all over the room cleaning things up, she suddenly felt like there was something strange about the classroom. By the way, Indo, why does the classroom have so many desks if you've only got 7 students here?
Oh, that.
Tama took a long breath, apparently very pleased with the fruits of her labor.
It was like this when we showed up here. We thought about reorganizing it, but the desks are pretty heavy and moving them would have been a lot of effort. So we all decided to just keep the place as is, and we can use the spare desks as extras if we ever need them.
Ron feigned apathy and nodded, thinking to herself, this explanation barely makes sense. It's similar to the question of why the students are packed up 2 to a room despite how large the dormitory is. It's not that we're on his own, but there's gotta be more reasonable ways to handle these things, right? But Ron looked at Tama, who was reorganizing the storage cabinet with her back to Ron, and opened her mouth to speak. Ask about the difference between Indo and Yoruno's school uniforms. Tell Indo that her outfit suits her perfectly well. It suits her well, yeah. Let's do that. Recorded. Ooh, this is a divergence point, apparently, I think, based on the fact that we've recorded a new recall point here. Indo, that Hakama looks wonderful on you. It goes really well with your hairstyle.
Really? Thank you, Ibuki-san.
Tama set down her broom. She turned and raised her arms and shook her wide sleeves towards Ron a few times.
I was a little afraid to wear it at first, since it used to be that only the young mistresses were permitted to wear fine clothes like this. When I visited the instructor back then, I always had to wait by the window for the young mistresses class to end. I always wanted to wear clothes the way they did and attend school like them. Not to mention the lengths that the young mistress and I were forced to go to after that earthquake. It was terrible.
In a departure from her usual restrained demeanor, Tama had begun to speak in a higher-pitched voice. I can't go higher than what I'm doing for Tama, game. She was clearly quite excited.
That's why I'm so happy nowadays. My classmates are all so kind to me, and I even get to wear such fine clothes as these.
Oh, mistress? And what did she mean exactly by not being allowed to wear fine clothes? What is Indo talking about? Indo, where did you live before you came to school here?
Over in Yokohama.
What? Yokohama? Wait, what did you say about an earthquake? And your clothes? How could that be possible? Jesus. The directional audio on that just scared the shit out of me. The door opening was real loud. Again. Whoa, a new face! Someone suddenly shouted from the classroom door. Ron turned her head and saw a female student with her hands in her pockets quickly stepping towards the blackboard. The female student grinned. She seemed quite interested in Ron. So, what's your name? You transfer student? When'd you get here? Ron immediately noticed an embroidered crest on her uniform's breast. It had clearly been sewn on after the fact, rather than being the crest of the school itself. I'm gonna check real quick the log we made about Tama. Has experienced the Great Kanto earthquake. As a person, I definitely know when that was. $1923. 1923. Methinks time fuckery be afoot. Before she could answer, though, another student entered the classroom. What is it, Aya? Did something? As soon as the latest arrival saw Ron, the smile on her face fell away immediately. Who are you? Why would there be anyone here other than ourselves? The female student, who's been addressed as Aya, was circling Ron and scrutinizing her from head to toe. These students have different uniforms as well, though theirs are relatively more modern, with quite the unified design language, no less. I'm Ron Ibuki. I found my way here after I got lost. Good morning, Ta-chan. Lost? Hater detected. The second of the female students furrowed her brow, staring at Ron.
Good morning, Toya-san. Toyama-san.
The voices of people speaking around you in the form of speech bubbles in the upper right corner. The newest speech bubbles will be indented further than the others, until the next bubble arrives, at which point it will turn to its regular position on the right. You know how conversations work. If you missed a conversation, check the logs for lines marked with a star. Lines heard through eavesdropping this way will be recorded in the order in which they were heard. But we're in the mountains, and the tunnel road's been closed off. You on duty today? How did you get so lost that you wound up somewhere like this? The suspicious female student, who wouldn't stop asking incisive questions, seemed rather displeased. Ron, on the other hand, felt her mood brighten just a little. This student in the tuxedo uniform is the first person in the school to actually ask why I appeared here at all. Still, if I just tell her that I don't know what's going on either, it'll just make her more suspicious of me. No wonder Makoto's not here yet. She never does get up this early, does she?
I'm more than happy enough with Asakura-san's usual willingness to accompany me to class.
Might even impede my ability to converse with the other students. My best hope for now is to just blunder through and talk to her again once I've understood her a little better. I don't know why, but I have a feeling she's going to be very helpful to me in the future. I don't remember either. I just know that I came to this area to look for someone, and before I'd realized You haven't actually answered my questions, have you? Are you hiding something? Okay, Miho, you can stop bothering the new girl now. The student named Aya put both her hands on Ron's shoulders, looking quite pleased. It's rare for us to get a new student. Try your best to get along with her. You go by Ron-chan, right? I'm Aya Toyama. Aya Toyama. She seems chill. Even though I know that she's calling me Ibuki-san. Buri, that's kanji for Ibuki. Welcome back, Scoop. Just in time. You fit for the last 15 minutes of the stream. We are starting to meet many more girls. Still sounds so... Even though I know she's calling me Ibuki-san in Japanese, it still sounds so awkward in Chinese. And the rude but cute over there is Miho Take. I suggest you keep your distance from her. Miho Take. Bitch. After dropping that parting shot, Miho retreated back to her own desk, as though she'd lost all interest in participating in a conversation related to Ron. Don't worry, Ron-chan, Miho always talks like that, but I know the truth. She's very happy that we got a new classmate in our school as well. Not in the slightest. You answered that way too fast. What even is up with these two? Are they doing a bit? Oh, Toyama's got a choker on her neck. I think she's got rather particular taste. Is that a signifier that I'm unaware of? Alright, let's take a look at Aya Toyama. Investigation 5, Alacrity 6, Charisma 4. Uniform styled after winter sportswear, constantly smiling cheerfully, seems almost naively innocent. Only willing to speak facetiously to Miho Take. She is unwilling to reveal her true feelings. Excitable and affectionate. What's the meaning of the crest? Neck choker? Just a bit taller than Indo. Thinks she's a rock star? She wasn't all that familiar with relaxing songs. Does that make her be a good friend? I don't know. Her and Miho perhaps I was only able to find love in Sakura because of their love. What the hell? This feels like I shouldn't have access to whatever that is yet. Investigation 8, Alacrity 2, Charisma 6. Uniform styled after Western-styled suits. Calm and collected, and the only student to express suspicion about Ron. However, her intentions towards Ron seem to be benevolent. Ron harbors positive feelings towards her, but even Ron herself can't explain where these feelings originate from. She's hot? Is that it? Is that just what you're... Like, you're a nightmare gay disaster, Ron. I think that's probably just it. Teardrop mole, incredibly pretty. Not as much as Sakura, of course. Very long legs, ideal proportions. Pretty smart too, apparently. Weird patterns on the neck of her uniform. Ask her about the crest. Toyama, did you embroider that crest on your uniform yourself? You're asking about the crest, Ron-chan, but you've been staring at my choker the entire time. That's what you're really curious about, isn't it? Aya pointed at the star-shaped bangle dangling from the choker on her neck. 'Cause you were insincere, I'm not gonna tell you this time. Ask again later. Well, that's not fair. I mean, how the hell are you supposed to start off a conversation by asking about her choker? Oh, it's not important, I guess. Let's just ask what she thinks about the tunnel instead. Look, Toyama, I can't afford to stay here too long. If there's any way out of here other than the collapsed tunnel, please let me know about it. Ways out, huh? Even though I'd also like for you to leave as quickly as possible, there really are no other ways out. That said, are you implying that you need to flee for some reason? You've completed whatever nefarious mission it was that you infiltrated the school for, so now you're getting ready to flee? You're being overdramatic. I really am just an ordinary high schooler who got lost, alright? Miho turned away once again and began pulling textbooks out from her desk. Aya, on the other hand, deposited her head onto Ron's shoulder, facing Miho, and whispered, Isn't she just like a shy kitten? She's adorable, right? But try not to let her rile you up, and do your best to get along together, Ron-chan. I'll try, even though I'm more of a dog person, really. Yeah, Ron seems to be the only person who can't leave. Were you here when we met the little shrine maiden girl? Because we found out that she's from 1923. And we also found out when we tried to, like, grill her on why we couldn't leave, she just shut down completely and couldn't really give us an answer. They've been fully cut off from civilization for a year, as far as they know. Yeah, there's some time fuckery going on. It definitely feels like sort of one of those they're all dead and in purgatory kind of things, you know? That kind of vibe. But, we have no concrete information yet. It's all supposition. Yeah, one of them's got fruit tea. They all seem to be from sort of like different time brackets, to a degree. Thus far, we've got the oldest of 1923, because she was there for the Great Kanto Earthquake. And I'm guessing Ranibuki is just present day. I'm hoping we get a student from the future. Has there been a smoke monster? It's only purgatory if there's a smoke monster. There hasn't been yet. But there has been a chilling cold and a howling wind. We may be in a lost situation. Can't be sure. God, the end sucked. As far as the school's concerned, I think Yoruno's the only cat it needs, though. I guess she's more of a feral cat, whereas Takei is closer to a house cat. Oh yeah, also the eclipse worms. There are worms of pure darkness that make cocoons. Oh god, I forgot about the polar bear. Aya started giggling at Ron's words. She gave Ron a few pats on the shoulders and then bounced back to Miho's side, where the two of them started chatting about other things. Ron shrugged, folded up the rag, and headed towards the storage cabinet in the back of the classroom.
Thank you for helping, Ibuki-san.
No need to thank me. This place is immaculately clean, honestly. I barely even had anything to do. Tama-chan, finished with your daily duties?
Asakura-san!
After hearing Asakura's voice, Tama ran over to the back door immediately. Ron returned the rag to the storage cabinet and looked towards Tama and Asakura. It's just Ron. Ah, so in this extended metaphor, if Indo is the puppy, suppose she's the owner. I imagine if Indo had a tail, she'd be wagging it right now. Tama and Asakura didn't chat for long before Tama lifted a hand and gestured at Ron. Asakura's eyes widened upon seeing Ron. She bent down and whispered a few more things to Tama. Tama nodded in response, and Asakura laughed before approaching Ron. I wasn't expecting to see any strangers in school. Asakura held out her hand for Ron to shake. I'm Makoto Asakura. Your name is Ranabuki, correct? Makoto Asakura. Why does she look so grim in your portrait? That's right. I'm Ranabuki, the Lost Wanderer. Investigation 7, Alacrity 5, Charisma 7, uniform styled after Western-styled suits, adaptable and difficult to shock, but in an indifferent rather than collected way, skilled in speaking diplomatically. The way Tama Indo behaves around her seems almost servile in nature. She's the young mistress. Super tall, easily amused. There's something off about her. An Indo's master. Interesting. Math homework yesterday was so hard. Help me, Miho. She's that Asakura who's responsible for maintenance. She looks like the no-nonsense type. Absolutely not. You're only having trouble because you're lazy and you don't study. Oh ho, seems like you're a pretty interesting person. Oh, good morning, Tama. Though you might feel a little lost at first, having just arrived, you'll find that everybody here is quite nice. You definitely won't find yourself bored. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go through these until these go away, and then I'm gonna read the side conversation in order, because jumping back and forth is getting really disorienting, I think. I like the idea of this, and it works better if you're just quietly reading it, but when I'm reading it aloud, it's really throwing me. Though you might feel a little lost at first having just arrived, you'll find that everybody here is quite nice. You won't find yourself bored. Everyone indeed has been quite friendly. Okay, do we have 7 yet? Hang on. Indo, Asakura. We're only at 5. We're missing 2 girls. Everyone has indeed been quite friendly. Yeah, 1, 2, 5. Yep. We are the 8th girl. Everyone's been quite friendly. Such as Takei, for instance. Ooh. Just temporary points. I think I only need 1 charisma for this. Yeah. Go back. Ask about Asakura and Indo's relationship. Tama mentioned to me that she receives a text from you every morning, Asakura. Always gets quite excited whenever she brings you up. Makoto Asakura nodded, her eyes flitting over to Tama, who was in the middle of a conversation with Miho. Almost at the exact moment that she looked over, Tama looked up and waved back at her as well. Well, there's always a new text from her sitting on my phone first thing every morning, after all, so of course I have to send a reply. Asakura waved back to Tama as she continued speaking. Let's talk about you first for now. There's not a lot going on with me that's worth talking about. Asakura, I still have something very important to do, and I can't afford to stay here. Do you know where the nearest station is? Makoto Asakura folded her arms in front of her chest and thought for a moment before speaking. If you head west on the path that leads out the school gate, you'll reach a tunnel eventually. If you go through that, you can find a station pretty quickly. But certain events have caused the tunnel to become blocked, so we're probably out of luck there. I don't know when they'll send people to handle the situation either. Even someone like me who's in charge of maintenance at the school can't do anything about the tunnel. Asakura started giggling to herself for some reason. Ron didn't see what was so funny, though, if you're planning to check it out for yourself, you should pick a later date. On the way here, I noticed that the skies have already begun darkening. I imagine it's going to rain pretty soon. Okay, that has gone away now. So, back to the eavesdropping conversation. Started with, math homework yesterday was so hard, help me, Miho. Absolutely not. You're only having trouble because you're lazy and you don't study. Good morning, Tama.
Good morning, Takei-san.
Actually, I've been having trouble keeping up with the math homework too. I'll help you with your homework after classes are over then.
Thank you, Takei-san.
We Wait, was Tama the one who said... Oh, yeah.
Actually, I've been having trouble keeping up with math homework, too.
Edit this. I'll help you with the math homework after your classes are over then.
Thank you, Take-san.
Miho, why won't you tutor me too? Because unlike you, Tama takes everything she does seriously. Whereas you just need to work harder. You should spend less time with your guitar. Ron nodded in response. All of the students seem to share the same attitude when it comes to the collapsed tunnel. Nobody seems to be concerned at all, even though it's such a major hazard. You said you had something important to do, though. What did you mean by that? Ron blinked. She hadn't expected that Makoto Asakura would want to revisit what Ron had mentioned a few minutes ago, after answering Ron's questions. My girlfriend's missing. I'm looking for her. Girlfriend? Makoto raised an eyebrow with deliberation. Very well, then. If you run into any problems at school, don't hesitate to give me a call. Makoto waved goodbye to Ron and then took a seat with Tama. Asakura and Indo almost looked like mother and child next to each other. Ron, seeing everyone return to their seats, headed for an empty desk near the classroom door as well. She sat down at the desk and took her phone out. The screen indicated that it was currently 6:52. She'd originally just wanted to burn spare time before the rest of the students arrived in the classroom to start their morning meeting. But once she saw her lover's photo, Ron gave a deep sigh and slumped onto the desk. The noises of the other students' conversations around her faded into white noise as Ron remembered the time she'd spent alone with her lover in the classroom. Think about those things. Just focus on what's in front of you. All right. I'm gonna save that here. And we're still in the prologue. Hell yeah, that's visual novels, baby. But I think I am going to call it here. How's her phone still charged? I assumed she had an opportunity to plug it in at night. Like, they seem to have power. Because they seem to have power and food. It's a real mystery as to how, but they do. Anyway, thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm very interested to see what's going to be happening here. And I hope you all are too. Join us tomorrow as we are going to go back to continuing this and meet our remaining two girls and find out what's happening in our big gay murder mystery. Spooky. Have a good rest of your evenings, everybody, and take care. Farewell. Hey, if you stuck around to the end of the video, I just wanted to say thank you, and I hope that you enjoyed. If you want to help support me in making more of this, you can follow me on Twitch, where I stream these live. Like, comment, and subscribe. I suspect you all know how this works by now, but it really does help a lot. Thanks.